Welcome to the Leading with Love podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Arthurs. The purpose of this podcast is to touch your heart, expand your soul, and help us all be everything we came here to be. We have interviews with amazing humans and solo episodes as well, all made to bring more love, more joy, and wisdom into your day. It's a growing list, so check back often and let's dive right in. I just noticed, for those of you watching and not listening, and welcome, that I often start just leaning on my hand like this because I'm listening to the music and just enjoying it so much. Thank you, as always, to our wonderful George Henner who created that beautiful song. It's called Blossom. You can find it on Bandcamp, and he would appreciate the support. And I always want to give him a shout out whenever I remember because I love that song so much and I never get sick of it. I just love listening to the intro and outro, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So, today feels like a big one. We're going to talk a little about generational healing and healing our lineages, and maybe a different spin on it than what we've talked about before in whatever healing circles we might be in. I know that it's different because the idea hit me and it felt kind of revolutionary, and I shared it in a love note, my little love notes on Telegram that I mentioned. Come on over. Love this monstera, last week, and I got so many private messages back on that particular episode, that particular love note, about how healing that was for people. And so I want to share that with you here on today's episode. So let's just dive right in, and I'll express it, articulate it as best I can. So, if you're on a podcast like this, if you're listening to a podcast called Leading with Love, and you're feeling in your heart and you're having, a spiritual journey in this life, you are spirit embodied. Even if you just have an inkling of that, you have to have come across the concept that we are here to heal our lineages, right? Where, to the point where there are memes on Instagram saying the buck stops here, right? All the things that have been passed down to us from generation to generation unconsciously, we are bringing it to the surface. We are doing the inner work, the conscious healing work, so that we can dissolve those patterns, heal that lineage, and not pass that along to the next generation. Whether we have children or not, we get to heal this stuff, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? It's a burden, but it's also a release and a relief. And then we don't bring those unconscious patterns to our children or to our communities, to our relationships. This is such a big one. It's such an important concept. And so all of us who do know this have been on this path of, okay, I'm going to see what patterns are running. And we go back and we do some inner child work, and we look at the way that we interacted with our parents and how any unhealed trauma from our childhood and decisions we made about ourselves, about who we are, about what may be possible and what may not be possible for us in this lifetime, most of which is not truth at all. But those beliefs are frozen in time on our timeline, right? And they run unconsciously our current relationships and our current dynamics, interrelational dynamics, and how we are in the world. And so as we go on this healing journey, we dive into those things and we see those patterns. We're willing to look at those patterns and see where they came from. And sometimes that's really tender work, right? Seeing how maybe what I saw with my mom and dad when I was a kid played out in the relationships that I've had with men as an adult. And we all have to go through that kind of work if we want to heal, if we want to have an awakening, if we want to have a beautiful life. And so what showed up and what I spoke about on the love note last week was, hold on a second. Yes, we need to do this work. Yes, we are responsible. There's another meme, right? It says you're not responsible for what your parents did, but you are responsible for not carrying it forward. I paraphrase. But we are responsible for how we show up in the world and doing the inner work that allows us to not project our stuff onto other people, not act in dysfunctional ways or codependent ways that we have perhaps carried with us up until now. But as I go through, my parents' things, my father passed recently. God love him so much. And so now I have both of my parents' belongings, paperwork, letters, cards, love letters, all the things, a lifetime, 2 lifetimes. So my ancestors, right? They are their DNA intertwined to make me, to bring me forth in this world. That's how the physical works, to bring this loving being forth in this world. And I'm grateful, and I know that was part of their purpose. And as I went through all of their things and all of their paperwork and all the things they left undone and all the burdens they carried, emotional, physical, financial, I felt the weight of that. I felt it was so heavy I could hardly breathe. So I'm just going to take a nice deep breath now. And this is the moment where I could hardly breathe. And I felt so heavy that I was quite literally on the floor in the fetal position, just praying like, I can't take anymore. This is too much. Help me. Show me a way through this. And what got shown to me immediately in that instant, in that moment, was, why are you carrying somebody else's burden? These are not your stories to carry. And this is the insight and the revelation that I wish to share with you today, that I shared on my love note, and literally had some of the listeners of that love note send me messages crying with joy, with gratitude for this message that came through to me that I shared with them and I'm now sharing with you. So I hope this touches your heart and gets through, because it's a really big one. We do not have to carry our parents' burdens, our parents' stories, our ancestors' burdens. They carried those things in their lifetimes, whether they're still with us or not. They are carrying their own stories, their own beliefs. They have passed many unconsciously to you. You do not have to carry those things. You have your own discoveries to make, your own patterns and beliefs that were formed when you were a child that you need to go through and release back to the light. You have your own life to live and your own story to tell and experience in the telling. You have your own things. So yes, we need to look at these, but we don't need to carry them. And only once my parents had passed, once my dad had passed, did I recognize I was still carrying their burdens and their stories. And I think there's a part of us when we learn about intergenerational healing that feels like it's part of our duty, our love-bound duty, to carry those stories forward, to carry those burdens forward, but it isn't. We have to detach, or can, let me put that a different way. We are being invited to. Spirit is inviting me to. I am inviting you to. Let go of those attachments, because they're codependencies. They are dysfunctional. We are free beings made of love. Our parents brought us forth to have our own adventure here, our own story to tell, as I said. We are the star of our own movies. And if we are holding on our shoulders so much from those who came before us, we're not honoring truly their sovereignty to live out their own stories and the lives that they came here to live and the lessons that they came here to learn. We're kind of trying to carry that for them, right? But it's not our job. Our job is to do our own work. And so when we recognize those things and say no more, no mas, I'm not going to pass this on to my kids, I'm not going to bring this dysfunction into my life and my relationships anymore, we can actually just let them go and just say thank you, parents, ancestors, grandparents, brothers, sisters, for all the lessons that you learned in your life and passed on to me, whether they felt like dysfunction or not. I'm freeing you now. I release you. And at first that felt painful to me because I thought, I don't want to release my parents, but I'm not releasing the love. I'm holding on to the love. I'm holding on to the thread of love but that's the only thing I need to hang on to. If there are traditions I wish to pass along, or beautiful lessons that I learned from my mama about being a woman or being a mother or a daughter or things like that that I wish to pass on to my daughter, that is a conscious, healthy choice. Anything else is unhealthy. I hope this is making sense because it was such a revelation for me to release them, to just release their stories to the ethers and let those stories go with them. They're gone now. They're not physically here anymore. And I'm not going to carry any of that anymore. I'm not. And it was such an incredible feeling of lightness that came over me in that day. And of course, I still feel grief. Of course, because grief, as my dad would say and did say, is the price we pay for having loved. It is evidence of love that we shared. And so it is my pride to have that grief, or my joy because I know it means I loved so deeply, but I'm not going to carry it as a burden. And I will release them to the lives that they lived, the lessons that they chose to learn in those lifetimes. And I step into my own without carrying theirs. And it's a big one because I think a lot of us carry them forward, even as we're doing intergenerational healing. That, to me now, is my new definition of generational healing, is letting that go and leaving it in that generation. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. I'm not carrying your stories for you. It feels almost blasphemous as I'm speaking it, but I've released about 90% of that, like that little voice that says, no, you should, you're their daughter. No. And I release my daughter. And I release you guys. None of you should be carrying anything from me. My stuff is mine to carry and release if I choose to, and dissolve and heal and transmute, alchemize as I see fit. And none of this needs to be my daughter's story. Her story is hers alone. She gets to walk her path without me, even unconsciously, but consciously as well, putting anything on her, any weight of a story that I think she should be living. Nope. Not doing it. And I love that. So I will leave this here for you, with you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that it had some impact and landed in a way that my love note did, because I know that that was just such a gorgeous message that came through me to you. So thank you for those of you who are on both of these platforms. I hope that it wasn't a repetition for you, but rather just a deepening of this message that came through, because it's really beautiful. I can feel it as I speak it today. So thank you again for being here. So grateful. May we lead our lives with love, because that's what the world needs. That's what I see that the world needs. That's what I feel. I'm here to bring, and I offer to you. Thank you. Until next time, I'll see you later. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoyed this episode and it helped you open your heart, feel inspired, and know that we are all connected. Please subscribe and share so this work can touch more people. This is how we co-create the world we want to live in. Thank you so much again for joining us, and talk to you next time.